it's Bailey from Making It Midwest, and this is going to be a video giving you a review and tutorial of the Cruella palette, or the Everyday Eyes palette from e.l.f. These are limited edition. If you missed the first one I did on the Maleficent palette, you'll be able to find it like here. I'll put a little thing you can click on right there. This is primarily purples and greens and smoky eye. This is the Sinister Smoky Eye palette. The Cruella palette, on the other hand, is a more neutral kind of setup. Here we have it's actually very similar to the Comfort Zone palette by Wet n Wild, but I'll get into the different colors and all of that later. Something I forgot to mention in the Maleficent review and tutorial was that all swatches and like close-ups, you can get really up close and personal with this and the Maleficent palette on the blog. This is more a review and tutorial, but then you can see close-up swatches and pictures and all that stuff on the blog, to which I'll link down below. So let's start with what is in this palette. Much like the Maleficent palette, you open it up and here you have this kind of warped mirror. It's not a great mirror. And then you open it up further and you have this kind of Cruella lookbook. Here, this is the night villain, and then here is the day villain, you can see there. So it gives you a little bit of inspiration, and in fact, the look I have now was more inspired by the night villain look. So then you have this protective cover, which the Maleficent palette had, but I ripped that sucker out because they tick me off. So once you then look in here, you see that you get a pair of lashes, which you'll see close up in the tutorial. To give you a little description, they're kind of like demi lashes where they flare out at the ends and are shorter on the inner corner, which I really like, and they're definitely more natural looking than those that come in the Maleficent palette. I think, judging by the title, this is overall a more wearable palette. So you get those lashes, you get a little thing of glue right here, you get four, well, they're all neutral. So here are the lighter, you get a matte cream in Puppy Love, a champagne, like a yellow, or actually it's a neutral champagne, Coat of Dreams, a light shimmery green, Cruelty. This is kind of an antique-y gold color. It's like if you were to mix one of these browns and the green together, it's kind of a rusty gold. Then you have Spotted, which is a more shimmery gold as opposed to this more neutral-y champagne. A medium brown shadow with gold sparkle, a matte chocolate brown, and then a darker, shimmerier, almost kind of grayish brown. Then you're given an eye primer. This is pretty much the essential primer, as well as two cheek and lip pencils. And I talked about this in the previous review and everything, but basically what they are pencils that you can use both on your lips and cheeks. I do that in this tutorial, and it's not the best kind of blush situation that e.l.f. could have put in this palette, but they'll do, and they're nice colors, so that's what's included. You also get a black liquid liner, which is nice to have in any palette. So to start the look off, I went in with Coat of Dreams, this medium champagne color, and I pat that on the inner corner and underneath the lower lash line, right on the inner third. Then I went in with this kind of antique-y gold brown shade, and I put that finishing off the rest of the inner third, because then what goes on the rest of the lid is this little beast, the matte chocolate brown. But before I laid that down, I put Cruelty on because I found out in doing this eye first that Cruelty has some major fallout, and while it's very sheer, if you put it on top, if you put it down after you have kind of a layer of shadows elsewhere on your eye, you will have this thin shimmery green filament on everything. So if you really want to keep it where it's supposed to be, lay that down first above all these other colors. So I put that Cruelty, the green color, on my crease, and I took kind of a fluffy brush and worked it as the best friend blending color up in there. That is when I went in with the little beast, the matte chocolate color, and I pat that on the rest of my eyelid. The last part for the shadows was taking that Extinction, that dark chocolate grayish kind of color with shimmer, and I put that on the outer corner to really deepen things up. And one thing I have to say about this palette is, considering that Extinction color is the darkest shade in the palette, it's not very dark. I don't feel like this is an over-the-top smoky eye, despite the fact that I used pretty dark colors for what's in this palette. So that's something to keep in mind, is if you're wanting to go off the walls dramatic with this palette, don't count on it. Then I went in with a black liquid liner that's included in everything to create this wing shape that I have here, which kind of primed the lash line for the lashes that I put on. For the cheeks, I used my finger to warm up the lighter of the two lip and cheek pencils, and I just dabbed that on my cheeks, and it really didn't give a ton of color, especially, and it's not going to if you have really any kind of color to your skin, but it gave it a little something extra. Then obviously I went in with darker of the lip and cheek colors, and I put that on my lips. So for the most part, everything is the same in this palette as it was in the Maleficent palette. I like the eye primer's great, and if you've had e.l.f. eye primer, you'll be able to judge whether you like it as well. The lip and cheek pencils are surprisingly creamy. I've had them before where e.l.f. lip pencils tend to be a little dry, a little drying, and that just wasn't the case with these. These glide on pretty smoothly. Even on your cheeks, once you warm it up on your finger like I did in this tutorial and just patted it on, they function really well and they don't disturb any powder or foundation on underneath, so those are good. And the black liquid liner is a pretty standard in the e.l.f. collection and works really well. It's nice and opaque. It stays, although it's not waterproof, so that is something to think about. I also really like the lashes included in this kit. The band was a little bit thinner, they were a little more flexible and more comfy to wear. So while I like the kind of theatrical flair that the Maleficent lashes had, these are by far something I could wear on a more daily basis, and those others were just not comfortable, but God, they're so good looking. Now let's talk about the shadows. I was not wowed by these shadows. They are so-so in pigmentation. They swatch really well, but when you actually go to apply them with a brush, they just kind of fall short. And so if you're really looking for that neutral kind of everyday eye, then this is going to be perfect for you. If you really don't want to have to worry about overdoing it on the shadows, I think this is a great palette for you. If, however, you're looking for something like what the Maleficent gave me or can give you, this is not the way to go about doing that. I would recommend, and this is actually probably good advice in general if you're looking for a dupe to this palette, going with Wet n Wild's Comfort Zone. These retail for $10 at Walgreens and they're limited edition, so if you see them and want them, you should pick them up while you can. And I've already said that I think part of the cost in that $10 is paying for the Disney name, because something, considering what's in this palette, I feel like it would be in a lower price bracket. If you like the Disney name, kind of like I do, I think it'll be worth it for you. However, in a palette like this, I think you should know that the powders, the shadows, aren't up to even sometimes e.l.f.'s par. So if you know you want something that isn't going to give you a ton of intensity, a ton of pigmentation, check this puppy out. If on the other hand you're struggling to find it, you don't know if you want it, even if you do find it, go for the Wet n Wild alternative. So I hope that was helpful. It was I felt like I kind of breezed through all that because I'd already done it once before in the Maleficent book, but there were some subtle differences, so I hope I got all those to you. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!